You ready to go? Child development? This is one of my favorite video clips of all time. Mostly because, ready? I want to know, and I know you do, you've all seen this, so yeah, I don't think but it's still fun to watch. And I love to know what's going on in their heads. And I know people have already tried to say what's going on in their heads, but how many have never seen this? It's got to be something about a sock, and you messed up. You spilled it everywhere. It went bad. And no, I didn't. This is a conversation about a sock, I'm convinced. But I don't know that. Okay, see, you know, he's trying to say, that ain't it, that's not it, it's not the way it went like that. No, it wasn't. I don't know where you're getting your information. Talk to the hand. Here's what psychologists do. They go, oh, child psychologists go, there's something going on there. There's a conversation, there's language, but you know what they're doing? See, once you know a little bit more about things that as you study this, you realize, wow, they're so cool. What they're doing is they're modeling. Does that sound like who? Who are they modeling right there? It's mom and dad, or SpongeBob, or whatever they're watching. Most likely it's mom and dad, and they're just kind of imitating, going, no, but then something's funny about it, to at least one of them. And so we find humor in just kind of in this language. But you know what they're doing, which is way cool? They're taking, so there's lots of cool things. One of them is they're taking turns. Yeah. Did you notice that? Yeah. They just wait for it. How do they know to take turns? They go, no, it was like that, it was bad. Okay, your turn. And the other one goes, you've done that since you were little because your mom or your dad, when you went like this as a baby, there's some weird things that you do, but your parents almost do this naturally and your brain picks it up and they go, you're a baby, you go, and almost always we see parents, moms, they go, oh, that's right, baby, boo, 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 boo. And the baby's like, and then the mom, boo, and the baby goes, and then the mom goes, oh, that's right, little baby, boo, boo, boo. Okay. You know what that is? That's language. That's the beginning of you and me having a conversation. I've never once had to talk to somebody and go, okay, I'm done, your turn. That would be odd. But everybody knows when I'm done. How do you know when I'm done talking? Why did you just talk right then? Because I gave you the freedom to do it with what? My what? The inflections at the end of my sentence go like, oh, did you see that? Did you see the Broncos? And they won, and they smoked him, they killed him. Wasn't that awesome? See my voice go, what? And that's your sign to go, oh, no, he was messed up. They should have seen him. And if I want to interrupt you and you're talking, and how do you interrupt somebody? They're going, oh, and if you don't want to be interrupted, like, and then they went, like that. We do it all non-verbally. It begins right there. It's very important. These are rules we learn as children that psychologists try and decipher. We know what they're thinking. I can figure out what they're thinking because of some of the cool things child psychologists do to get inside the mind when this kid has no language, but they've got the beginnings of it, but we can figure it out. But we also have to do some cool experiments with this. By the way, your brains, just a segue from what we covered last time about the brain, we were talking about pleasure circuits. Do you remember that? And how some of these pleasure centers are stimulated and how dopamine comes across, and dopamine stimulates this pleasure circuitry that says, I like that, I like that, I like that. There are some people who are born liking those pleasure circuits to an extent that they have a hard time, what? Delaying gratification. They want it and they want it now. And then there are some who can delay gratification. And they have different brains firing patterns, and that's some cool things we're looking at. So could we go back, if we figured out this, ready? In some people's brains, they are able to delay gratification, and their prefrontal, this cortex, kind of kicks in and says, no, you know what, you can wait. And some who don't have that very well. And in fact, in this capacity, what we find and what we notice is that brain scans show, and I don't know if you need to write all this down. In fact, it's not that important. If you want to do it for your own information, that's great. But brain scans show that those who delay have more prefrontal cortex activity. You who can delay have more prefrontal cortex activity. And by delay, you know what I mean? Delay gratification. I give you a bunch of chocolate and I say, don't eat it until after dinner. And then some of you are like, yeah, right. Or some of you say, but those who are more impulsive have more pleasure circuit activity. That's the area linked to addictions. So is there a connection between impulsive behavior? The ventral striatum is an area related to addictions. But this begins to show up in childhood in our brains. That's the connection. That's why it's so cool to study these things, but that's why it's so cool to study children, to start to figure out some things. And so a guy put together one of the coolest little studies of delayed gratification, working with kids to see when does this happen. And it was a guy by the name of, in the late mid-60s, I guess, late 60s, a Stanford psychologist, performed a test on young children, demonstrating the significance of delayed gratification known as the Marshmallow Experiment. How many have seen that one? That one's awesome. Would you guys like to see it? Yes. All right, here we go. The Marshmallow Experiment. How many have never seen this?
Okay, sit in that chair. All right, here's the deal. Marshmallow, for you. You can either wait, and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can eat it now. When I come back, I'll give you another one, so then you'll have two. But stay in here and stay in the chair till I come back, okay? All right.
Are they able to delay gratification? That was the question. Would they wait to get a second one?
I'm gonna go do something and then I'll come back.
It smells yummy. It smells really good.
He's saying if I don't look at it, maybe I'll be fine. But let me see if it's there. Oh yeah, it's there.
It's up to you. You can have it now or you can wait. Okay? I'll be back. Stay in the chair, okay? Okay.
She's gonna eat, isn't she? This is my favorite kid right here. Okay. We think these tendencies, and the Stanford guy that studied this landed upon something, and we think these tendencies are pretty much inborn. Could you see which one you are? Some of you remembered what you were like as kids, and that does that carry with us? And that's a big question for psychology. Do things that we're born with carry with us? We talked about shyness in here. Just because you're born this way, just because, by the way, I love all the bruises on his arms, you know. And he's like, you can tell he's probably a wild kid, and he's right on the edge, isn't he? There's like, and then you see someone pushing the boundaries, which some of us do. Like, if I just take a little nibble, just a little taste. Ultimately, when we talk about things like delayed gratification, the cool part is we're starting to find, and some research is showing some cool ways to connect that which we study in the brain and some of our processes with childhood things. And then the big questions, are they born this way? Or some who are saying, forget it, I'm just going to eat it. Or this delayed gratification principle. It's a process that certainly happens as time goes on. Parents can help. And so we're going to ask big questions like that when we talk about child development. So, brain development then, just as a segue, from the last material we've covered, this is important because at conception, literally at that moment where the first trimester, that first moment of the brain, that first moment when it's starting to kind of form is just shocking. That all of what we are and will become is beginning in this kind of unique moment in time. By the way, we call these trimesters, as you know. The first trimester involving the first 3 weeks. The first brain cells are clearly evident after 3 weeks from conception. 7 weeks, you'll find clear indications of a brain stem. Then the face and the hands and the feet are evident, and the baby is grasping and frowning and squinting and grimacing at this time. This picture shows, in essence, how clear, developed, and human this is even during the first trimester. Taste and smell during the 20th week, cortex controlling limbs. This is an important period and milestone, the 22nd week, when the brain is able to have a little bit more control over the limbs. Interneurons, we talked about those a while back, and interneurons are not only are they formed, but they begin to link up cells. And then we have sleep-wake patterns of babies, clearly, which shows brain activity that they'll carry with them for a long time, that sleep-wake kind of pattern at 30 weeks. The fetus can survive outside the womb sometime in this period. After 23 weeks, if a baby's born, by the way, if the baby's born 23 weeks premature, or at 23 weeks, there's probably only about a 10% survival rate. But if the baby is born just 3 weeks later, at 26 weeks after conception, there's a 90% survival rate. So between 23 and 26, they go from 10% survival rate to 90%. And technology has helped that somewhat, but also probably because that brain has matured enough to control certain things. So certainly that fetus being surviving has moved up a little bit. I say this because the brain has important implications, and certainly we can find evidence for lots of these things, and our understanding of how the brain develops and works has been influenced by some new technology that before we weren't sure about. And this helps, especially in the abortion debate and issue, understanding that these babies from the moment of conception are human. They're very human, and they're very much alive. They may not be able to survive outside the womb, but evidence, until about the 23rd week or 24th, but it's clear that a lot of people have misunderstood how powerful, how deep, and how deeply human this baby is from the get-go. And so all that to say, as we're exploring more and more of this, even using some cool technology called 4D sonograms. I'll show you a picture of a 4D sonogram. It's pretty cool. Just showing the amazing, almost miracle that occurs in this idea of the brain of a baby. So, those are the trimesters. We'll talk a little bit about them, but your book talks some about development. There's just some cool things about childhood and children, and so I wanted to mark this here for you. We will talk some about children, and I just want to share one verse that is really kind of powerful, I think, and it's this idea, it's ready. Whenever we see children, there's a very powerful feeling most of us have. We're attracted to them, we're drawn to them, we want to protect them, and there's things about a child that pulls that out in most humans and most adults. And then if you ever are blessed to have children or to adopt children or to be around them a lot, you'll know that this verse in 1 John is an amazing verse. You don't have to write it down necessarily, but it's 1 John 3:1. How great is the love the Father has lavished on us that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. Even that exclamation part, that is what we are? We're a child of God? I remember when I had our first kid thinking, I didn't want a kid, by the way. I wanted a child and I wanted a bunch, but I remember thinking the only negative about it would be I wouldn't love my wife as much because I'd have to love this kid now. So like you take your love and go, okay, I love you a lot, but now I got to love this kid, so somebody's got to give something up. I know that was an odd way of thinking, but it turns out the kid comes out and you realize, oh, I love that kid and I still love her the same. Does that make sense? It's like you have more capacities, and so I thought, I don't want a second kid because then I'll love them less than the first kid. And that's true. I don't love him as much. No, it's not true. And so you go, I love my wife and I love this kid, and I love her too. So it's like a diamond. It's got all these facets. And then I realized, that's how God loves me. I would do anything for that kid. I'd protect him, I'd dive in front of them, I'd beat up anybody for them, I'd do whatever. And that's what God will do for us. That's why there's an exclamation point and the word lavish. And that is what we are. So that's pretty cool. So it's just a thought. There are some fundamental issues that we're skipping very quickly through. I was going to say skip over, but we're not. We're going to just briefly touch upon them, and those do occur in the chapters in Meyer's textbook that you ought to read, especially consider one of the key issues that underlies a study of development is the nature-nurture issue. I've alluded to it a couple of times. When we talk about what we're born with or what our parents have influenced us by, how our genetic makeup has led us to be more delayed gratifiers, or maybe some of the ways in which we have strong impulse control. That's getting at the heart of the question, are you born shy or not born shy, for example, is nature-nurture. You've heard of this. I'm going to only just touch on it briefly, so you should be aware of the issue because it is a key point. But this is known as this is genes versus experience. Are you who you are today, sitting here with your personality, your proclivities, your gifts, your skills, your talents, your passions, your interests in certain people because of genes or experience? And it's really a fascinating endeavor. They took little baby sheep and baby goats, and when they were born, these male baby sheep and male baby goats were switched. And baby goats, boy baby goats, were raised by a mother sheep that was a sheep. And the mothers were happy. They didn't know any different. They knew the kid looked kind of weird, but they just went ahead and like, well, all right, that's mine, I guess, you know. And so all these goat moms had these little boy sheeps and raised them up. And then the question was, as they got older and matured, who would these now adult males be attracted to? Here's a baby sheep that's a boy raised by a mommy goat, and now you put him in a pen with other adult females, and the question is he going to go after, he's a sheep boy, is he going to be attracted to the sheep, or is he going to be attracted to somebody that looks like mom, the goat? Isn't that a cool question? Genetics, what does it play? What about experience? What about raising? How? It's a fundamental question. Do you want to know the answer? Well, I'm not going to tell you because it's not part of, no, I am. The answer? The little boys went to the animal, the female, that looked just like mom. That's who they were attracted to. So the little boy sheep were attracted to the female goats. And it persisted like that for almost forever. What does that mean? That's with sheep and goats. Is there something that happens to us in our experiences with our family and our, that says, oh, that's an interesting kind of study that begins to tease out. And by the way, humans, we do the same questions about why am I like this? Why do I like this kind of thing and not that? Why do I have the ability to travel well and have adventure? Is it anything to do with my parents? Does it have anything to do with the way I'm just wired that way? How many think, raise your hand if you say, gosh, I am like either my mom or my dad in a lot of ways. How many, raise your hand? Half of you are raising your hand. How many say you're not sure you're like your mom or your dad in any way? You're just kind of a unique, different from them? Or so most of you have some tendencies like that. How many, ready, of you have believed that you had a personality that was kind of like this as a kid and you're very different in one aspect or feature of your personality? How many say you've gone through a kind of a little bit of radical change in that? It's another question we're going to have. Do personalities, are they stable? Do they change? Can we make major, so these are all fundamental issues. Let me finish genes versus experience because it reminds me of a psalm. King David wrote a psalm, as you know, Psalm 139. Search me, O God, you know this one? Search me, O God, and know my heart, try me and know my anxious thoughts, that psalm. Well, at the beginning of that psalm, he talks about, I was formed in my mother's womb. He says things like, you created me in my inmost being. You knitted me together there. Because I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days were ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So I think David's writing about this experience or what that's like and this notion of who he is formed in the womb. And the question that psychologists have been trying to answer is, wow, how much is biological and genetic and how much is from experience? So we break it down this way. Certainly there are genetic factors that make us the way we are. I know I tend to have, from my pure, just straightforward genetics, from what my mom and parents have told me, you've kind of always been this way. And it feels as if I came out that way. That's genetic. There are oh, by the way, some other genetic factors. Some of you have an earlobe that's attached to your, like this one is attached, and some have unattached earlobes. Have you ever noticed that before? That's genetic. So some of you can look around and ask people, if you don't know your own ear, whether yours is attached or not attached. Some other genetics go like this, ready? You didn't influence this, but some of you, if I asked you to do this, ready? Take your hands and put them together like this. Well, some of you are going to put, like me, your left thumb on top. How many have your left thumb on top? Let me see. How many have your right thumb on top? And now try and switch that and see what that feels like. It's not genetic and it's weird. All right? So, by the way, it's the same thing when you cross your hands. Left thumb on top. Sometimes when you cross, one hand is on top. You can see when I cross my hands, my left is on top. How many have your left on top and your left thumb? Left thumb and left hand on top. How many have your right hand on top? Yeah, okay. So it's weird. Try to do it the other way. It's like I can't even cross my arms that way. So we have these genetic preferences, right? All of this, the question comes in, does that have any influence on my behavior? Just because I can do this, or just because I can make my tongue? Some of you can bend your tongue and do odd things with I don't know what you do. Some people just don't have that. Or we have some other really interesting ways, but the question comes down to, even with these little things, do they have an influence on our behavior? Well, probably what you do here doesn't really change much about how you behave. But there's got to be some other genetic influences that do. And I told you shyness, after research by Jerome Kagan and his team at Harvard, have discovered that shyness may very well be attributed, about 80% of it, to our genetic biological experiences or background. Okay, our genetic biology is setting in shyness at about an 80% rate. But that means there's still variation. What other variables? And by the way, we now realize most traits have a combination of things. So there's not only genetic, by the way, the next level are these other variables which are called nurture or environmental factors. So you could be exposed to certain chemicals as a baby prenatally, and that could influence your behavior. So some kids have had the experience in the womb of experiencing certain kinds of chemical influences which have shaped who they are and how they're going to live or behave. Sometimes it's after birth, postnatal. And sometimes some of you were just, in general, all of us experience some things that we all share together. My guess is the majority of you shared one thing, but you may, I don't know if you, how many would say 9/11, you remembered it? You remembered where you were, what you were doing, and how many had it kind of had an impact on you, or you still think about it, okay? It's starting to fade a little bit, because how old were you all during that time? Most of you were like 5. How many were 5 years old at that time? 6. Any 7? Okay, not a lot, maybe a little older. How many are 4? 74? A couple of 4-year-olds? How many don't even remember when it was young? Ready? That experiential factor, it has a lot of bearing on people, let's say, that are your age and older. They just remember that if they live in this country and some other countries as well. That general experiential factor had the kind of broader influence, and it shaped people. But there's also individual experiential factors, things that have happened to you, maybe that haven't happened to other people, and they've influenced what you're like. Maybe you've had an encounter of being lost or being scared in a certain thing, and now you're a little bit worried or shy or have these connections to something, and that's individual experiential factors. And then traumatic factors. So parents, peers, gender, culture, all of these are influential parts to determining some of us, even let's say our variations in personality related to, let's say, nurture or environmental factors. Okay, so quite possibly 40 to 50% of individual variation in personality may be due to genetics. That's not saying much. That's like saying it's a mix, a hodgepodge. Do you understand the nature-nurture issue? You've read it, understood it, seen it before, I hope. If not, this is a very quick summary. The textbook covers this in like 4 or 5 pages, but it just summarized it for you, so you have to spend too much time with that. Questions so far, anything? Any pause, any moment, like, okay, let's talk about that. You all good? All right. Development by leaps and bounds is the continuity, discontinuity issue, and then our personality is stable. And we'll look at people's, for example, a great example that occurs in the Bible in the book of Acts chapter 9 is Paul's conversion, where this person, Saul, had a radical experience with God, and it changed his personality, so to speak. It changed him. And in fact, from that point forward, he was called Paul, not Saul. But the question comes in, do we have radical moments like that? Does God ever come in and change people and their personalities are just like, wow, different? I would say Paul, his life experiences were very much impacted by this, but was he still Paul? If people knew Paul, let's say, the years before that, if they met him a few years after his radical experience on the road to Damascus, would they go, wow, I know your name's Paul now, and I know you follow, follow Jesus, but would they still say, he's still Paul? And that question is, he probably is. And there's some, but each of us have had experiences. Each of us have had maybe encounters, maybe not as dramatic, but the question is, does your personality, do they ever change over time? Can we radically go from being not a shy kid to all of a sudden being a shy adult? And these are questions developmental psychologists ask. Are they stable? Is development gradual or developed by leaps and bounds? Are there any questions on that? Just want to give you an overview. No? Good? All right. So, to top off the idea of prenatal development, what I want to spend a little bit of time looking at there are just different stages of development. And so before birth, these stages of development called prenatal, of course, pre-birth, something during the first 2 weeks of conception, we would call that the zygote stage. A baby between conception to 2 weeks, we're going to call the zygote stage. It's known as that. You wouldn't. The arrow's pointing to nothing. It's just, it'd be very small. If I tried to put it up there, you wouldn't be able to see it with the naked eye. Pretty much not. It's just that small. It starts to do a variety of major changes, so much so that by the second week, we're now calling this the embryo stage. And at the end of the embryo stage, it is clear that we're talking about a human that looks human. The hands, the feet, everything is this process. So from 2 to 8 weeks, and what do we call after 8 weeks? What stage? Yeah, it's in the fetal stage at that point. So the fetal stage, 8 weeks to birth. So these kind of modeled pictures of what a baby will look like, and by the time the 8th week is here, up to birth, this baby has, fingers and toes and the clearly identifiable human images for it. And so here, you have. By the way, this is This is an actual picture, a 4D sonogram of one of my kids, because I went in. I know, it's so cool. Look at that. That's inside the womb. Look how clear that is. Watch, the baby can even smile and move. And I have other images, but I still remember the day the first person told me about a 4D sonogram, because we were using these, the old the old ultrasounds. And so I have 2 older kids, and they had these ultrasounds for them, and they were like, you can't see anything. And they go, oh, the person running it would go, oh, look at the baby. And like, wow, it looks like a mountain or snow, or you couldn't make anything out. Oh, look at how cute the heart. Oh, like, that's their heart? Wow. And so we went in for our 3rd kid. We had a 10-year gap. The reason we had a 10-year gap, by the way, is because, I'll tell you a story later, but my wife gets really sick, and so we stopped having kids. But anyway, we went in, and so I went in literally almost to the same place, and the lady goes, okay, we'll do an ultrasound now. And I go, do you guys still use this same equipment? I mean, there's been like a technological computer revolution that's happened. You just got to upgrade your software. And they're like, no, we still use these things. But she goes, ooh, here's a cool thing. Go check out these 4D sonograms. And so we went, and they had only been out for about a year. And there were only 3 in the whole United States. One down in Long Beach or wherever we went, and we got to hook her up to this. And I'll show you a video of it at some point maybe, but it's a very clear picture, and it's changed the way we think about prenatal development. When it changes, because you get a picture that's really clear of what's going on in the inside. So that's the fetal stage. I think most of you have seen this. By the way, that baby is growing very big, very quickly. You can see here. It's just the mom wouldn't even necessarily know. And then it gets to this size. When our babies grew, moms carry them differently. If you've ever seen pregnant moms, like some you look and they don't really look pregnant. My wife looked pregnant at about 3 months along, because our babies for some reason grew this way. And so it was so shocking to see her like at 4 or 5 months. It's like, oh, how are you going to fit that baby? Our babies grew like Superman, like that, leaning out. So she would like bump me all the time. People would stop us and go, oh man, are you about ready to give birth? It's like, no, I'm 5 months pregnant. And be like, oh, I'm sorry. And She just grew them out there. Some moms are like this. You can't even see. Not Elisa, man. It was so bad that the 5th month, I had a dream that I was in line at the cafeteria over here, standing there, and somebody had a tray and they kept bumping me with their tray. And I'm like, dude, I'm in line. You keep bumping me. And I woke up with my wife's stomach. So I slept like in another bed, like from 5, because we couldn't fit, man. It was like this little, I don't know, it wasn't a twin, but it wasn't much bigger apparently, and she took up the whole thing. And now she wasn't, I'm not saying she was, I'm not being mean. She wasn't fat, she just carried her babies, Superman babies. I even took pictures of her every like 3 weeks in the same place, standing in the same, like here, to show the growth. And so we have them like every, like, and I had to turn wide angle the camera. Poor thing. Okay, at this age, I'll tell you one quick story. At this age right here, this baby, the mom, how many know a mom or someone who had morning sickness? Some of you all may have, because by the way, that what happens is these moms produce glue and that baby right here sticks. Right here, using a glue right here, and I'm simplifying things, but this glue is what makes mom sick. And it's a very powerful substance so that baby doesn't shake loose, and so it produces that, and that's what causes morning sickness. We were in Russia. We were there studying the language, taking some students over there, and we didn't know we were pregnant. And Elisa, my wife, is throwing up all over Red Square. And so everywhere we went, blah, you know, like 40 minutes, like, blah, like, good night, Elisa, what's up with that? She's sick everywhere. And it kept going the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And now we're all concerned. Like, man, Lisa, what's going on? She goes, I don't know. This is bad. I've never had the stomach flu like this. We were praying, dear Lord, remove this sickness. Remove this sickness, and there's a thing called glue that, whatever. So we just kept praying for that. Well, we didn't know, and about 3 weeks later, so ill, we finally fly back to the States. And she gets we pull, I remember, because back then this was in Soviet times of Russia. And so she gets a pregnancy test in New York, and she goes, just on a spur, like, there's got to be an answer. And sure enough, that's what it was. She's so sick, check this out. She throws up every 45 minutes. When she's pregnant for 3 straight months, no food or liquid could go into her mouth, not even her own saliva. She throws up, it's called hyperemesis gravidarum. Hyper means a lot, emesis means throw up. Gravidarum means it's very dangerous. To not the baby, but to her. Every 45 minutes, so how did she eat? Food and liquid went into her veins, and that's the only way she ate. So I'd eat like a hamburger, and I'd take a little IV bag, and hey, Lisa, let's eat. Like that. She'd sit there like this, wow, this is really good. Blah, like that. Every 45 minutes. So we said, no more children if this doesn't get fixed, but we didn't know it wasn't, so guess what? We had number 2. And guess what happened? The same thing. It was so bad, you guys, that the vein, this is bad, the veins, there'd be a lot of, but anyway, they put these needle things in her arms just to get, but it'd be so bad, they'd do the other arm, they'd do the other arm, they'd do the other arm, and so it'd be all this really bad things, and they finally got a PICC line in, and then after about like the 6th month, she was able to take him out and start to eat some food, and but they couldn't, you know, all the veins were messed up, and so one day, she's sitting there in bed, and this is the only time I've ever heard my wife cuss. I was in bed and she cussed. I was lying there, that's out now, and it's about midnight, and I'm a deep sleeper, and I hear this. I hear, whatever she's saying. I go, what's up? Because I wasn't. And what's up? And she goes, something's wrong. It just really hurts. My side said, is it because of like, what is it, the baby? She goes, I don't think it's the baby. It's just, it hurts. And so, she goes, I go, what do you want to do? She goes, let me just go walk around for a while. And I go, okay, so I did what you should do as a husband. A good husband. I fell back asleep. And so, because I needed to be rested, man, because it's going to be, so I fell asleep, and I get woken up like about 20 minutes later and go, oh man, like, well, is it still hurt? What happened? What's going on? She goes, it's really bad. It hurts. I go, well, do we need to call the doctor? What do we need to do? I don't know. It just hurts. Like, well, what should we do? And she's like, I don't know. I'll just get up, walk around, and get something to eat. Maybe that'll help. Okay. So once again, I fell asleep. And the third time I woke up and I called the doctor because here's what I heard, one word. Damn. And I went, oh, you cussed. You cussed. That's messed up. I'm calling the doctor, man. I called the doctor and said, what's wrong? My wife, she just cussed, man. There's something wrong with her. And she's like, oh, I can't believe she said that. That sounded like something I would say. So we rushed her in the hospital. Guess what was happening? The doctor, first of all, looked at her and goes, oh, well, let's check it out. You're in pain. Where's your pain? Right there. It just hurts so bad, blah, blah, blah. And we told her, she was pregnant. And the doctor goes, okay, well, let's get you started and figure out what we can do. You're pregnant. So the doctor calls me and says, excuse me, sir, can I talk to you? Like, yeah. And she came over and she goes, oh, she's a user, huh? And I went, a user? No, because she had all the vein marks. And I went, no, she just cussed, man. She's not a user. No, I didn't say that. I just said, no, she's pregnant. She got all the, problems. She goes, oh. And like, does she look like a user? What does she look like? Anyway, all that to say, so they fixed her up. She had a kidney stone. Oh. And she said, Chris, I'd rather give birth to a baby than a kidney stone. These things hurt really bad. Why am I telling you these stories? Glue, babies make you sick. And so, oh, by the way, that's, okay, I know. End of the story, ready? Second baby to happen. And so we stopped having babies. That's it. Why would you want somebody to go through that? It was rotten and painful, so we stopped. I had a hard time with this one, though, man. I was like, I can't do it. Maybe there'll be a cure one day, Lisa. And she's like, well, stay away until then. And so it didn't happen. Somebody threw something at me. And then 10 years later, check it out, 10 years later, she walks into we're at this conference and she's all sick. Does it smell in here? Like, nope. Gosh, it stinks. I'm getting sick. Like, wow, all right, whatever. And then she was sick that night, and then next morning, and then I'm in a meeting, and she calls me up at noon, Chris, you got to go back to the room. I know why I'm sick. I'm thinking, wait, you know why you're sick? Why would that be? And she pulled out a pregnancy test. And I wanted to smile because I wanted more kids, and I ran as fast as I could because she was going to kill me. I know, because she's like, you idiot, look. Blah, and she threw up. And I was so happy, man. Seriously, it's like, we got another kid, and she was sick the whole time. And we took, I know, horrible. We took Zofran. It really helped. It's a pain thing, whatever. I don't know. But man, that's a long story, man. That's messed up. But all that to say, moms make glue that give them morning sickness. All right, and then there are other potentially harmful viruses or chemicals that come into play that. By the way, we no longer are going to have children. There's a guarantee on that one. And yep. It was like within 24 hours. Here's a pregnancy test. Guess what? I set up an appointment for you. So German measles, alcohol, x-rays, drugs, nicotine, potentially harmful viruses or chemicals that can cross the barrier between mom and baby. So moms make this helpful, glue. Babies can be harmed, however, by things that are coming from the outside. These are just a few small things that can influence a child's development, growth, and ultimate survivability if these get too high. So we call them pterogens. And there's a study of when these happen and how they can cross and at what time and their influence. So, by the way, the brain, the functioning I told you about before, does come into play when we talk about the abortion issue, because some would like to say that it's okay to abort a baby if there's no identifiable brain functioning. And we can't really see that until the 22nd week when the cortex is, but You actually see brain activity much earlier than that, and survivability. And so that really these arguments for abortion are really, in my mind, arguments that don't hold a lot of weight, simply because you can't argue against the fact that this is a baby in there. But it has a lot to do with brain functioning. So that's why I told you a little bit about the brain and its development over time. The newborn. All right, let's try this. That's Caroline when she came out, and her middle name, the drug we took was Zofran, so that's her middle name. No, it's not. That would be odd, Caroline. Zofran, Grace. No, it's Genevieve, but Zofran did help. By the way, my wife was able to eat like about the 6th month. Then she can start taking food and liquid in, and she still got a little bit nauseated, but it was a lot better towards the end, so there we go. Motor development, but when the baby's born, there's these rooting reflexes, there's these moral reflexes. You'll see them in the textbook. Let me show a couple of them. If you go like this to a baby, as soon as that baby comes out, if you touch them right here, they turn and they start to suck. And that's a great behavioral response, because guess what? Babies come equipped to suck, and we can use their sucking reflex to ask what they like, what they prefer. We know they prefer their mom's voice because you can give a baby, you can measure its sucking when it hears its mom's voice versus when it hears somebody else's voice. And we can measure the rate of sucking, and we realize it's different when they hear their mom's voice versus any other voice. So we know there's some sort of knowledge of what mom sounds like and prefers. And we could use that sucking reflex. So that's just an example, or the rooting reflex. So here's another kind of couple of videos. Let's see if these play. I hope they do.
Babies are born with a set of reflexes critical for survival in the outside world. Some of these reflexes are so obvious you might not think to look for them, such as the breathing reflex or the eye blink reflex. Rooting is one of the most critical reflexes. By touching 4-week-old Lily's cheek, she'll turn her head and open her mouth in preparation for nursing. Once the baby is in contact with a breast, a bottle, or even a finger, the sucking reflex takes over. Involuntary at first, the neonate will gradually gain control over sucking during the first year. Placing liquid in the mouth will induce the swallowing reflex.
In the first few weeks of life, it takes all the baby's concentration just to control these various uncoordinated reflexes. At this age, feeding Julia can take over an hour. After about 6 weeks, though, Julia will be a pro. There are other reflexes babies are born with that we don't completely understand. In the first 2 months, babies exhibit the stepping reflex. This is probably a precursor to walking. Watch Lily's toes fan out and curl. This is the Babinski reflex, which occurs when the bottom of a baby's foot is stroked.
You can also do it like that. Toes curling in.
When pressure is placed on the baby's hand, you can see the grasping reflex at work. Lily's grasp is strong enough to support almost her entire body weight. For a few seconds at least. When startled or dropped, a baby may respond with the Moro reflex. The arms fling outward and inward as if the baby were groping for support. 2-month-old Julia doesn't even need to be awake to demonstrate this reflex.
Yeah. Okay, you can see these different reflexes, the startle reflex and all that. They didn't drop her. Babies, as I told you, we know their preferences, voices and faces and smell and the sound of the mother in particular, and we use things like what they stare at. So we can watch what a baby looks at. They become interested in something, they stare at it longer. If something is interesting or confusing, they stare at it longer, or they suck on a nipple longer, or they will prefer or turn their head in the direction of some things that they find interesting. We could also look at some behaviors that give us other ideas of preferences. We could even look at some brain pattern behavior to tell us. But the cool one as well, besides this, I think what I told you about social interchanges, when a baby goes like this, and the mom answers back, that is a social interchange that has reciprocal influences that leads these babies to develop the foundation for things like conversations, communication. And we call these social interchanges these very powerful reciprocal influences that are occurring. And one of these that, some of these involve early, social responses, like who they become attached to, what we call this kind of almost love concept of attachment and bonding that is done when a baby could be afraid or when a baby's content or happy. But there's some weird, interesting, cool studies that examine this attachment behavior. And what I'd like you to do is look at some of the Harlow studies that are out there on physical contact. And I'll show you some of those videos on Wednesday. But before I do, if you have a kid that you'd like to bring to class, email me. And again, around 2 o'clock on Monday, I'll show you some videos from Harry Harlow's early studies on physical contact. And then we'll start looking into the mind of a child on whatever day that is next, Monday. And so, all right, we'll see you then.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.